course, he raised the roof, or at least the ceiling. What are you doing? You're ruining everything. Here I worked so hard and I've done all this, etc., etc., you know. And he was just hollering at her. And suddenly the child opened up his mouth and said, "Enough already, Father. Die, Abba, die." It's die, which means stop in Hebrew. Enough. And Dvorah and Eliezer, you know, were wordless all of a sudden. He spoke.
Several years later, tragedy struck the Ben-Yehuda family. Dvorah contracted Eliezer's tuberculosis, and 2 years later, she died.
He felt a tremendous sense of guilt, and within 90 days of her death, 3 out of the 5 children died also. Not of tuberculosis, but of a flu epidemic.
Before she died, Dvorah had written a letter to her younger sister, Hemda, who still lived in Russia.
She says, "I'm going to be gone very soon, and it's going to be your turn." And then she put in another line, and she said, "If you want to be a princess, come to Jerusalem and marry my Eliezer."
Hemda followed her sister's advice and wrote to Eliezer. He refused to marry her, fearing that he would give her the disease as well. But Hemda, like her sister, wouldn't take no for an answer.
And so she kind of forced his hand, and he married her. And she lived with him 30 years. And she had 6 children with him, 3 of whom died. The 2 children that survived from her sister, she raised. And she was my grandmother. His first wife was the love of his youth. He also adored and loved his second wife. But his second wife was not, you know, like a big romance love affair type of a thing. His second wife was his helpmate. If he would have continued the way he was with his first wife, he would have never finished the work. And probably the whole thing would have failed. God had prepared this woman for him. When Eliezer Ben-Yehuda came and she saw his journals, she said, "How do you know where the words are? How are you going to alphabetize the words?" He says, "Well, what do you think in your great wisdom?" And she said, "Index cards. You put each word on an index card. All the Aleph words are here, and all the Bet words are here, and all the Gimel words are here. And now you're ready to do a dictionary."
As his body of work grew, Ben-Yehuda was often targeted by Jerusalem's Orthodox Jews, who labeled him a heretic. They considered Hebrew to be a holy language and objected to using it for what they called idle chatter. He wasn't very popular with the new Zionist movement either. Their leader, Theodor Herzl, was from Vienna, and he envisioned a new Jewish state with German as the national language. When Herzl toured Palestine in 1898, he took just 5 minutes to meet with Ben-Yehuda. And that evening, he mentioned the encounter in his diary.
"I met a young fanatic who tried to convince me that what our movement needs is to adopt Hebrew as our national language. It is, of course, ridiculous."
But Ben-Yehuda never strayed from his mission. He spent the next 2 decades working feverishly to finish his dictionary, sometimes 17 hours a day. The majority of Jews in Jerusalem were now speaking Hebrew, and in 1921, it became one of the 3 official languages of British-ruled Palestine, along with English and Arabic. By then, Ben-Yehuda's work had taken a fatal toll on his fragile health.
Eliezer Ben-Yehuda died in the month of December, in the second night of Hanukkah. My grandmother had a salon, you know, she was always entertaining friends, and Ben-Yehuda participated with them, and then he excused himself and he went back to his study, and he was working for a while, and then he lay down and he just couldn't wake up. When the people left, Hemda came into his room and she saw him lying there, and she started to talk to him and he didn't answer. He just returned his soul to God. A mere 40 years after he had been told that he has no future.
30,000 people followed his funeral procession from the old city of Jerusalem to the Mount of Olives, where he was buried. And today, one of the city's most popular streets bears his name, a tribute to the man who gave the Jewish people back their language. As one man put it, before Ben-Yehuda, Jews could speak Hebrew. After him, they did.
Imagine if there had not been an Eliezer Ben-Yehuda, and if in 1948 you would have had Jews living in Israel speaking 70 to 80 languages. It would have never worked. The language was absolutely part of the rebirth. It was necessary as breathing is necessary to survival. And Ben-Yehuda is the man that God appointed to make that possible.
It all began with a vision to a young boy who was living in Russia at the time, and God spoke to him the restoration of the language and the people to the land. Well, Ben-Yehuda's story is just one of the many you'll be seeing over the next few days about the founding of the state of Israel. Tomorrow we're going to be telling...
Stop. Does that bless you? You see, one of the reasons why I felt I needed to share this with you this morning is there's a wrong notion in our minds about how God walks on earth. The way we Christians pray, we pray for miracles.